This. Hey, everybody. I have a fantastic story for you today. Basically, there is somebody that you wish you knew who they were, but you don't know who they are. And today I get to tell you about them. And actually, I'm going to let her tell you about her. Xeon Lights, please tell us who you are.
Hello, my name is Zion, and I'm a prominent climate activist. I've been involved in the environmental movement for many, many years. From a very young age, from Greenpeace through Friends of the Earth, Camp for Climate Action, which was a small British group, but we did a lot of direct action. I was arrested for protesting a coal-fired power station here, then again for protesting investment in tar sands, then got a little bit older, a little bit more sensible maybe, and wrote a book, authored a book on how to live with a low carbon footprint. So for a long time, I was very prominent, very active in the environmental movement. And then a few years ago, I was asked to be a spokesperson for Extinction Rebellion. This is a big climate organization that was founded here. So it was with the founders here that I got involved, and they asked me to help with the messaging. And they said, go on TV and say all these great things that we're going to do to fix climate change. But I wasn't allowed to talk about nuclear. And now you have to understand that I was very young when I got involved in these movements, in these groups, and they are all anti-nuclear. So it was never the case that anybody ever challenged that. I never thought that was wrong. It was only until I was much older and I started reading around the subject myself, and I came across things like the IPCC report saying, actually, we should have nuclear. I sort of started saying, hang on a minute, was I wrong? Was I wrong? But everybody around me would say, no, 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 they're wrong. And I started to question that. So when I got into Extinction Rebellion, I'd already done that questioning. I'd already sort of thought in my head, we were wrong and we should not have protested nuclear energy, and I was wrong for doing that. But I was not able to publicly say it because you have to understand this was my community. This was like my, adoptive family. And so in Extinction Rebellion, I was asked not to talk about it, but I went on many different platforms. But one of them was this big TV show here called The Andrew Neil Show. And Andrew Neil asked me, well, what do you want to do instead of fossil fuels? How do we replace them? And I really wanted to say nuclear, but because I was there as a spokesperson, I didn't. But because I couldn't bring myself to say what they probably would have wanted me to say, which is wind and solar, we'll do it all, and we should live with less, I froze. And so this hit the headlines like globally. It wasn't even just in Britain. It was really embarrassing for me, really kind of damaged my credibility, actually. Had to turn my social media off for a week. People kept saying, she doesn't know what she's talking about. These groups don't know what they're saying. So I felt like I'd also damaged the cause. So I completely ended up stepping away from Extinction Rebellion. I said, I'm not doing any more, public speaking for you. But I also kind of shifted it. I decided to shift the narrative by just answering the question. People said, why did you freeze? And I said, the honest reason is because I wanted to say nuclear. And that is kind of not allowed. And the backlash from this, I knew there would be backlash, but by that point I was prepared for it. And I just went out and I wrote in two of the main papers actually in Britain, published an op-ed by me saying I was wrong and we are wrong and we need to change our minds on this. The backlash was pretty phenomenal. I lost a lot of friends. I lost a lot of people that were dear to me, and I was very sad about that. But also, I had a lot of support, and that was the bit I liked. That even people where I wasn't really sure what their opinions were in Extinction Rebellion, for example, especially younger people, they covertly sent me messages saying, "We support you. Actually, we agree. Not, we won't say it publicly, but we do agree." And that was really heartening for me. So I, from that, suddenly became the spokesperson for a clean technology that not a lot of people wanted to talk about or go out and own. So I started to learn more about it and answer more questions, and I ended up going all over the world, and it made news in Australia, and I ended up going over there and speaking to people there about it, and helping to kickstart their current kind of conversation of where they're discussing lifting their ban on nuclear energy. And so yeah, it's the interesting thing I think is people say, well, how could you leave behind your environmental roots like that? But if you know anything about nuclear energy, I'm embracing them more than ever. Like I've gone from someone who is very kind of worried and negative about how will we solve this to saying, thank goodness there are some solutions. Actually, maybe people should speak up for them instead of always just, saying that we should just embrace extinction or embrace the negative kind of outcomes of our lifestyles. I think that's the biggest thing for me is that I don't think I am that different than when I was a climate activist before. I just am differently informed now, or better informed now. But that in a nutshell is the whole story.
One of the novel things about having started so long ago being pro-nuclear is that you coined a few quotes that are kind of common today that we don't really realize where they came from. Can you share those with us?
So there was nuclear saves lives, energy is life, and that was around talking about energy scarcity, because my parents were immigrants here from rural poverty in India, where they don't have electricity. So, and I went over there and I saw that. So actually something I would often do in the environmental movement here is call that out when they would kind of idolize living on the land. I'd say my family left behind everything they knew. My parents left behind everything they knew to escape that. Actually, they don't want energy scarcity, they want energy abundance. And this is kind of where my rift always was, rubbing in the environmental movement. Nuclear energy is clean energy. The most dangerous reactor that you build is the most dangerous reactor is the one you don't build. And my favorite, something I always get asked on panels, probably because it's like really great nerds who want to get into the details, is what's your favorite reactor? And I could talk about reactors, I could talk about EPRs and AP1000s and all of that, but I tend to say something more for the kind of broad audience, which is the best reactor is a reactor that right now is putting energy into the grid, clean
I love
energy
it.
grid. That's the best reactor. So a lot of phrases that you hear. Nuclear workers are climate heroes. I coined that one in an article a few years ago. But yeah, when I started talking about it in around 2019, 2020, it was really, there was a tumbleweed. If you Googled on any website, any news site, what are they saying about nuclear? It was all negative. It was like 99 to 100% negative. It was very hard to find anything positive. So it shifted a lot in those years, which I'm really, really happy about.
Some of the things that come with being a pioneer in going against the grain are that you get some really compelling stories. Like, for example, you have one with Friends of the Earth, or Francois Macron, the current president of France. Could you share some of these stories?
So I was invited to France a few years ago to speak on a live televised debate. It was a really big event in Paris. There were hundreds of journalists there. I was a fellow panelist with the French energy minister at the time, a big French intellectual, and the CEO of EDF, and also another energy CEO. And I kind of called out the CEO. I kind of said, there's a problem. You need to look after your power plants. And I said, look, I understand it's difficult, but you need to look after them. And that was because at that time, Europe was experiencing energy scarcity. We had an energy crisis, we called it. And right at that time, all the eyes were on what's each country doing. So they were looking at France, and it turned out that some of the repairs weren't up to date. It didn't mean that the reactors weren't safe. They just hadn't been done. So now they were shut down because they were doing the repairs all at the same time. And so people were complaining, saying, right now when we need this and we need you to export this like you usually do, why are these reactors shut down? So I just put in a little comment there that, you should be on top. I know it's complicated, but you should be on top of this. And he really hit back. The CEO of EDF really hit back, and he basically said, I was told to do this. We were told that we were phasing these reactors out. That's why we weren't maintaining them. And this hit the news. It was all over the French news that week, which, as I sat there, I was thinking, did we know that? Is that big news? And it turned out it was big news. And he actually ended up leaving after that. So he obviously just felt, I'm going to push the responsibility off myself onto whose responsibility it is. But it became a big news story in the French press for the next sort of week, and then culminated in Macron calling an announcement where he announced that they would be building new reactors. So he U-turned again. He'd sort of decided to phase them out kind of covertly, and people probably wouldn't have noticed if there wasn't the energy crisis. And he completely U-turned on that. So I was very pleased that happened. Yeah, Friends of the Earth, I'm in a big beef with them at the moment because they have this horrible article about me on their website, saying that I've lied. I lie when I say that millions of lives are saved by nuclear. That's not a lie. There is research supporting that, saying that it kills lots of fish. It's all the usual stuff. But, it's quite a prominent website. If you search for me, which people do for my work, it comes up on the first page. I have contacted them and I have said, shouldn't this be taken down? And they said, yeah, that's awful. We should look into it, but they've done nothing. So they're not going to take it down. But it's, you know, I mean, it's, yeah, this is the sort of stuff you live with. I'm sure you know in this world of advocacy. What I will say is it's much better now than it was when I started out. It was really horrendous when I started out.
Another really telling uh, uh, metric for public outreach on radiological risk is how the nuclear industry responded to people that were pro-nuclear and being public about being pro-nuclear. You have a story with EDF, Electricité de France.
I do. And the funniest thing is, you know, in the beginning, people would call me a shill. Every day I was being called a shill. Who's paying you? The industry's paying you. I don't work for industry. I've never worked for industry. I've nothing against people who work for industry, but I just don't, you know, I'm not a spokesperson for industry. And actually, yeah, I had conflict with them when I started out doing the advocacy because it was very visible. It was getting it in the press. You know, lots of people were talking about it. One thing I wanted to do was go and show that the wastewater is safe, because that was what the anti-nuclear people here at that time, that was their argument at the time, saying the water's radioactive, it's not safe. So I went across the country to Suffolk, where there's a power plant Sizewell B, where they're going to hopefully build Sizewell C, another reactor. And that was what this debate was over, because they were saying we don't want it. So I took a bunch of activists down there and got some local people involved. We went for a swim. It's beautiful, beautiful down there in the summer. Had a nice swim in the sea, took some footage. And because I announced it online saying everybody can come and swim in the sea, you know, it's perfectly fine, we're all going to be fine. They emailed me, EDF emailed me, and they said, we would like to ask you not to do this. It could go wrong. It could be bad press. And I basically hit back saying, how could any press be worse for nuclear right now? How could it possibly be worse? You do nothing and it is so bad. Like, at least if I do something, it might be a tiny bit less bad, but it's probably not going to be worse. And they did come around, they did kind of say, okay, you know, well, do you want us to send security? Because we can see the anti-nuclears have seen you're going to be there and they're posting that they're going to be there. And I said, it will be fine. But this, again, you know, they're coming from a different background. I came from an activist background. I'm used to those situations, to be honest. You know, potential conflict situations, and also knowing how to de-escalate them. And it was fine. They turned up, they gave us some no to nuclear badges. We gave them some yes, please nuclear badges. We ate some bananas. We went and had a swim. They put up their little anti-Sizewell C banners. Nobody stopped them. It was fine. It's a big beach. There's space for everybody. You know, maybe we didn't change any minds, but it's okay. It's okay to do this. You know, it's okay to go out and have a say. And well, it's important to have a say, especially if you're sort of standing up for science, I think. But we had a great day. We had a great swim in the sea, and it did get used in the local press, and also a little bit of it got used in some documentary footage and on the TV. So we were happy, but it just helped to put a slightly different lens on nuclear. And I hope that it also taught, you know, the employees a lesson at the industry that, you know, it's okay. But I know they were very, very worried, and that they were waiting with bated breath to see what the news story would be out of that, but there wasn't anything negative, so it was okay.
Fantastic story. I'm going to go ahead and thank you, Zion, for talking with me. And everybody, thanks for watching. I hope it was everything and more than you hoped for. Thanks for watching. Bye.